In this video, I'm going to share my struggles with intimacy and vulnerability. I've had these issues all my life, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll have heard me talk about how I've recently been on my first intimacy and conscious sexuality retreat, and that I've just finished a 4-month course in the art of Tantra. I went on these retreats because I recognised that when I start to get close to people in an intimate relationship, I don't know who I am. I don't know how to behave. And I know this may sound crazy if you don't have experience of this, but I honestly have not been taught in my life that it's okay to just be me. I didn't know what that was. So what used to happen, and it still does, but to a lot lesser extent than it did a few decades ago, is that I start to lose part of myself. I get scared, and I go into pretend mode, I go into protection mode. And as I get closer to someone, I start to hide who I truly am. I start to be a version that I think they want. And as you can imagine, this is incredibly painful, longing to be close to someone, but not allowing them to be close. I recognise where this comes from, of course. It comes from having to hide my feelings and my true self in my childhood. I had to create a persona that could present itself as being okay when inside I wasn't. I've shared that I was abused as a child, and this is the outcome. You see, young children who cannot cope with experiences that they are faced with, well, really young children, that they can't leave home, they can't go and ask for advice, ask for help, so they have to develop a survival strategy, and mine was to abandon who I truly was. And I was taught that it's not okay to be me, that expressing my real feelings could lead to rejection and getting into trouble. But as I have been exploring these consciously held spaces where intimacy and being one's true self is why we're there, we're actively encouraged to explore these parts of ourselves, I've been given the opportunity to learn skills that I missed out on in my childhood, and to test out these skills and explore my real self in a safe held container. So it's allowing me to open up to people. And although it is scary, it is beautiful at the same time. I finally feel like I can dare to be myself. I can start to trust who I am. And I now understand that the real me that I've been hiding, well, she's never going away, because she is who I am. And this is exactly how it's meant to be. And I still have moments where I want to hide, of course, but I now have the skills and the experience to come back to myself quicker than I usually would have done. And now I notice when I'm triggered in a more conscious way. So I used to get triggered a lot in intimate relationships, and I'd react without thinking. I was on automatic pilot. And this is what the brain instructs the nervous system to do. It's by design. It learns a specific survival technique, usually in childhood, and it sticks to that pattern until we try and teach it something different. And this is why I put myself in these scary places on these retreats. I have to get out of my comfort zone, because if I don't, I will never be free to be me. So now I am really conscious when I go into these old patterns of behaviour. You know, the ones that want to pull me away, or to protect myself, or shut down, run away, be too needy. And so for years, I've chosen relationships where I don't really have to show myself, where I could stay hidden. I chose people that didn't demand too much intimacy from me, and possibly because they were hiding from themselves as well. Maybe they just didn't realise it. But anyway, they kind of worked because these relationships were safe for us both. But actually they're not safe. Because whenever you choose to protect yourself, you're actually confirming to the brain that you need protecting, that you can't cope with anything new. And rather than a comfort zone, this becomes a prison zone. But once we step out of this prison zone, then we could call that space an aliveness zone or a true self zone. Because the truth is, if we choose safety over intimacy, we disconnect from who we really are. And this is what causes our anxiety, depression, illness, numbness, shut downness, feeling stuck in life. And it could show up as maybe staying in the wrong relationship that isn't good for us, or not even getting into relationships in the first place because we're too scared. It could mean that we rely on substances to hide from our intimacy, and all the other ways that we all limit who we are. And all the work that I have been doing for years, and I do it with my clients, it's all about trying to do something different. I'm finally learning how to stay with myself, to stay present with my fear, with my rawness. It's a longing to do something different. I'm ready. I stay with the scared part of me that's afraid to be seen. So afraid. Honestly, it feels like I'm being ripped apart inside. It is so painful. But I now know if I can stay with this feeling, if I can open to it, if I can soften to it, then I will come out on the other side. I'll come out stronger and closer to my truth. And this is what vulnerability is. It's not about just the exposing our fears part. It's about letting life touch you, letting life affect you, to surrender to that moment, to feel, to allow. It's about softening when everything in you wants to harden and just run away. And I've come to understand a few things about vulnerability that I'd like to share with you now. Not as fixed truths, these are my truths, but just as gentle invitations to reflect on. So firstly, please know that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's an opportunity to meet yourself, your presence. It's a place where your truth meets your fear. And you choose to stay anyway. That's the difference. Secondly, to see vulnerability, that it's often a signal from your nervous system. We feel vulnerable in the places where we learned to hide and protect ourselves when we're children. And it is often from early childhood wounds, rejection, abandonment, shame. So when we feel that tightening or panicking feeling in our body, we want to pull away. It's not that it's wrong, it's our brain's intelligence trying to protect us. But we do have a choice. We don't have to run the same program. We can choose a new path, and that's what this somatic therapy that I'm into does. We can choose our true self instead of the past. And the third is that these deep wounds that vulnerability show up, well, they're wounds where we're projecting onto other people. So for example, I have trouble trusting others, but I realise it's because I don't trust myself. I have a fear of rejection, and I realise that it's because I reject myself. I abandon myself when I get scared. And once we see this, it's incredibly liberating. Because if I can stay with myself, I don't need to keep playing out those same stories that just hold me back and mess up my life. So I want to ask you, where in your life do you feel most vulnerable right now? What situations bring up fear in you and make you want to run away? And if you breathe into that space in your body, you become conscious of your patterns, of your protectiveness, and you say, all right, I feel vulnerable. It's okay. I say yes to this vulnerability. It's me. I'm not going to run away. I'm going to stay right here, right now, and I'm going to feel. I'm not going to abandon myself. And I will stay with myself with love. Because when we stop running from our vulnerability, it can become a guide. It can show us where we need to open to the love that is always inside of us. So, where in your life, if this resonates with you, where in your life are you running away from? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Where is vulnerability showing up in your life? But also to think, what is it teaching you about yourself? So please share. And I want to thank you so much for being on this journey, because if my journey resonates with you, then please subscribe and keep coming back so I can share this stuff with you. Because this journey to self, it's not always easy. In fact, it's quite painful, but it is worth it. It is worth coming back to yourself. So I'm sending you love wherever you are on your journey. Mwah. And I really hope to see you again soon.